transport issues.
Yeah.
That's a
I
real
think
wicked
that's
issue.
why we veered slightly off the wicked issue for that reason, because we are very much the village halls are closing.
Yeah.
The two village halls that we might have today is are closed, and it is in the school that is the hub and is the only community building. And one of the schools are due a very good refurb, and hopefully we'll get it right in terms of the design of the building for that, because it will be the only community facility that will be there. So it's having that provision.
So it sounds to me as if you're quite well on in terms of your wicked issue. You've been ruthless in terms of...
As long as we stay focused and don't veer again.
Yeah, and that's good. What about the how for shots then? You know, how do you approach this? Are there any ways we can help this today in the discussions?
Difficult issue. In a sense, I think getting to the board took us away all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the how we do it really has been the recognition of it's not about being effective, and it has to be about the audit of what's there in place, and then about the branding of that as a uniform approach. I think it's definitely what we have to see next. I think we have made first steps in terms of the early years provision all having been centralised from within the local high school and used as that brand. It doesn't matter which early years provision uptake is there for your child, you will have the same approach and the same service. And then it will be obviously what the community group in our last meeting that we have here.
I think we certainly had a kind of project plan approach to this, and we've identified the kind of challenges that we have and broken them down into what would then be methods to tackle those challenges. And we haven't concluded in that exercise yet. And I would say quite literally, in some ways it feels like there's too many leaders in the room, because they're all kind of different perspectives that we bring to very opinionated. So I would absolutely support what Linda says about it's taken us a while to kind of get to a place where we've kind of got common understanding, common language, and by bringing in our kind of community partners to our last session, kind of reinforce some of our understanding for us, but also kind of opened our eyes as well. And I think we're very clear that going forward that just to see this only as a kind of local authority activity will be fundamentally flawed. Because we are concerned about, we're all concerned with the same families, and we're concerned about improving the quality of the provision and the standard. And some of the challenge, interesting what you've been saying about increasing gallery, and some of the challenges that we have around for families' access to employment. We know about the public transport infrastructure just doesn't exist beyond 6 o'clock at night. So if you're not back in shots by 6 o'clock, then you don't get back. So that presents lots of challenges for anyone wanting to find work. Our voluntary sector partners provide community transport to take people to Eurocentral as a place of work. So so these are very real challenges if you then want to look at how do you wrap around parental supports to that. And Linda talks a lot about kind of the extended families and our primary heads. They say a lot about there will be many carers and adults in a child's life. So when there's an issue at the school, a group comes. So there's a very kind of it's quite.
You'll be familiar with that too. I'm quite sure.
So who's the active parent in any days?
Who is the principal carer? Is sometimes a very, very difficult thing to fathom out, because although it might say on the records that you hold that it's the mum, you can see a child right through education and never meet the mum because it will be gran, 2 aunties and a cousin who comes
arrive at your door
without any appointment, of course. Mum handed chat because I want to discuss an issue. So it's about how you get that kind of system.
But isn't it great they feel they can do that?
Well, it is, and that's why you absolutely encourage any kind of communication on any level to break down the barriers of, as I say, particularly by the time they get to secondary stage, many of our parents or extended families have got bad memories of school and education, and therefore the disengagement by that stage is very, very noticeable compared to that. So as I say, it's the commonality of approach, and we have said we are all now going to undertake solid hard training, so it was my end of education provision are aware of what goes on further down. But key to our success is not about what education can offer, it's about linking with community and linking with community groups. We're very fortunate in our authority at the moment to have a very, very strong CLD input in all of the schools, and while it's new, we have to take that on board and embrace that.
Is there any likelihood that the approach that hopefully you'll take as successful outcome that in shots, will that actually transfer to other communities, or is this a particular
No, I think
thing?
as well, I
That's the plan,
I think the learning from it will be transferable, particularly for us as a learning service, because it will inform how we then organise and manage and make decisions about the management structures for our localities. So it's the important thing for us is to make sure that that is fed in in an effective way. And we have put this work within our service improvement plan for this year, which has just been approved, so we will be reporting 6 months in the reporting cycle.
I actually think because of the changes that we are undoubtedly are about to face over the next 2 years, as I say, we do work in an authority which, depending on what thing you're discussing, you can be split into 2 geographic areas, you can be in 3 larger localities, or maybe 6 actual localities, and I do believe that the work that we're doing here will help shape up across all agencies within council the affirmation that we have 6 distinct localities.
Sure.
But I do think that series will help to formulate that right across the authority.
Anything from yourself, and I know you're representing the team here, on the how, are there any common factors?
There's a few. So one of the things that I was going to say in the how, when we actually put our participant team together, we had a clear view we wanted to take advantage of the leadership development aspects of the programme, as well as the wicked issue part. So it was a team of people who were perhaps aspiring leaders or new into positions who wanted to develop a role. And we were also quite clear that we wanted to take them from across the directorate that we work in, which is education, communities and organisational development. So the group does reflect that. So there are education people, and there's a secondary head, there's a primary deputy, there's an early years centre head, there's a principal psychologist, there's a librarian manager, and there's somebody from CLD. So it reflects the commonality. And what's really emerged from that is being able to have that discussion, and I would have to say it's been done without any input or interference from the senior management team or the directorate. They're very much what they're blessing. What we've been able to do is discuss where we see it at an operational level and how that relates to the strategic level, and what we're making is a proposal that will help that current disconnect that's there. That then can be put into place in a way that allows people across the directorate to recognise both the operational reactive side of things and also the strategic proactive side of things, which then will be transferable into the learning communities as well. Where we are right at the moment, we're just about to go back to the education or the directorate's team with that, but that's in a state of flux as well. We have 2 heads of service, but one of them is vacant at the moment, is to be appointed next week. So a new director within the last year, the head of service is about to change, and that model we've heard a lot about, the central teams shrinking. So how do we actually get that shared vision and responsibility for that vision right across not only the directorate but the authority? Is a key factor of what we're saying. There needs to be that clear vision, so there's a clear buy-in from everybody, a clear commitment to the whole structure and not only to the establishment or your village or locality or whatever. So that's been a really interesting part of the discussion that we've had. How we come back to the partnerships. What are they, first of all? And how do we make sure that they actually are constructive and effective?
for the benefit of everybody.
And add value.
And add value, absolutely add value. And it's very interesting to hear the West Lothian
Yes.
we're talking about, because again, that governance, that's a key question for us. How would these 11 communities be governed? We're clear that needs to be a collective governance and collective ownership of it, if it's going to be successful, and not something that's driven from a single position in the authority.
You were a participant last year? No.
Neither.
Yeah.
I'm just a coach.
You're a coach. Have you been a participant at all? Right. Okay. I was just going to ask you, from what you've heard, any pearls of wisdom?
I suppose kind of the last thing that Alan said around governance, still in financial, shared education service and a shared social care service. So, and my advice would be don't underestimate the challenges of governance. You know, but actually to get that quite defined early on, you don't really think about it, and I think part of the process is we're looking at the governance, but given that the shared education service has been around for 4 years, then we are currently working with 2 sets of governments, and it's challenging at most levels, so that getting that defined is actually really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Any kind of questions for ourselves in terms of what's come out of the discussions and so on? Because it's a good opportunity for you to grab Scottish Government colleagues while they're here, because all 3 of us will end up back in the same building, I think, this afternoon. But I mean, I'd like to think it's an opportunity, Susan, Catherine, for the colleagues, particularly yourselves, to continue with this, and we can actually open some doors if you feel that for the other projects you'd like access to other colleagues as well.
I'd like to ask around the 30 hours 2020, and I know that's not absolutely 100% there, but it is going to happen. Financially, in relation to capital, because our big issue is securing. We probably will have to open nurseries in primary schools that don't currently have them, and they go to the larger nurseries, a couple of hours up the road or whatever. When would the capital money be announced? And then I won't hold you to that.
Go on, Susan.
When would we know of the capital investment? Because we probably are talking of quite significant amounts of money.
I don't know.
Huge implications.
But it would have to be quite early on.
Yeah.
We
It needs to be 3 years before we could start the programme.
We're looking just now at the timescales of when things have to actually be built, when we need to make decisions that will inform the budgets.
It might be worth just saying in terms of the Scottish Government budget. I mean, there will be a budget review process put in place, and I'd imagine it would be that would coincide with post-election. Then you have clarity on budgets through to 2020. I don't think there will be clarity in this particular cycle. I mean, presumably you're doing a lot of research on what the likely capital needs would be.
Yeah, that's what we're doing at the moment, because we need to know what the current situation is, because at the moment it might not be Dublin, it depends what the actual capacity is. If nurseries are already doing full-days and days, but we're basing it at Dublin, and yet trying to think about the different options for where nurseries might be expanding or where they might be
because your part-time nurseries, that's okay, because you're doubling you open in the afternoon. So all of our small nurseries in very small rural areas, not a problem. And that's a piece of work we will as a group to look at. But we do know in our certain bigger towns, such as Annan, which only has 2 nurseries, both have 100 children each, and there's only one other primary school, and they definitely don't have empty classrooms. So it's do you then build a centre that can be flexible, so that's your kind of childcare and learning centre, and your other school nurseries there, yeah.
It's,
So
it's a priority, it's something
yeah.
that, 2020 is a way off, but that's capital, decisions around capital, about decisions that will need to be made quite soon.
Yeah.
2020 is a long
Yeah.
and thinking back to the other comment about meeting parental needs, and if we do find that because of the constraints on existing physical provision in terms of buildings, and you're suggesting standalone units, then how does that actually meet parents' needs when they've got 2 children, 3 children to get to the same place at the same time? So there's a lot of factors that influence the where would you put that provision, and if there one or 2 places in your classroom, many establishments where the capacity is full and building spaces and doesn't exist around.
We looked at that a wee bit as well with the 600 hours, and it was thinking about not just primary, in terms of local authority estate, not just your primary schools, but your whole estate. Could be a secondary school. We just haven't been looking at that now. You could easily take the 2-year-old provision into the secondary school. Or it could be another, it could be a leisure centre or a library, it could be any to across the whole scheme for solutions as well.
And not just your estate.
And there's private.
Public sector and third sector estate. How flexible you would be with this is a question you should ask yourself. Do we work within comfort zones, established models? Are there models of provision elsewhere? You're right in the border with England, might be some models there. Other models in Scandinavia and so on. So there's think out of the box as well.
We have tried to get a trip to Scandinavia, which is a bit stretched.
Dan is going to get that as well. But there's going to be a report out during the course of the next few months. I forget it's called the framework.
Children's Commission.
Yeah, it's a childcare commission report which will be very aspirational. We had a brief from that recently. But it might give you an insight to some of the models that you might be coming to look at. There's a whole raft of things.
That's an independent report, it's not used to it.
No.
But it absolutely is.
What they're going to say.
Oh well. But the chap who's leading it is actually used to be a chief civil servant, so he understands the landscape. But I gather it's going to be quite radical with some of the aspirations that have whether or not any government in the current financial climate commit to all that is quite interesting. But I guess what I'm saying to you, particularly for your piece of work, don't necessarily work within boundaries. It might for a large rural setting you need to be really, really educated. And parenting strategies, some really good stuff from other parts of the world. So research comes into some of the approaches that you need to take for these wicked issues as well.
Buildings, creating new nurseries and schools that didn't happen, to secure their future as well. We talked about that.
It means houses.